Okay, so unit 3 we will have some doctors take in that because it's all about brain and brain, and it will be good if they take it. We can read it, of course, we come to know, but I think if some doctor takes it, then it will be very informative reading for us. So today we jump to into unit 4, models of information processing. Anyone wants to read? Want to take a chance to read? Because in unit 2 we saw information, there's some models on the information processing in unit 2 also. Here I think different models are there. I see Vog and Norman's model of primary and secondary memory, Atkins and Griffin's the stage model. So looks like this both are very if I see some question papers, both are very pet questions. Okay, let's start. Information is a source of learning, but unless it is organized, processed, and available to the right people in a format for decision making, it is a burden, not a benefit. Isn't it? So, information is wisdom when you apply it. Okay? That's another saying, right? Else it's just a burden. Very well said, right? So, let's introduction cognitions. Cognition is a psychological area of studies goes far beyond simply the taking in and retrieving information. Neisser in 1967, one of the most influential researchers in cognition, defined it as a study of how people encode, structure, store, retrieve, use, or otherwise learn knowledge. The information processing approach to human cognitions remains very popular in the field of psychology. Information processing is the change processing of the information in any manner detectable by an observer. So anything, suppose a person is doing a repeated task, right? So when he is doing the task for the first time, there is an information. Because there is a change. But if he is doing the task repeatedly again and again and again, there is no information. So if we take an event in this all why I'm talking about information processing is because as a communication engineer, I'm engineering coming from the communication telecommunication. There we have the information theory. There we usually give one example, right? The sun rises from the east. Okay, so what is the information in it? There's zero information, right? Because it's a very phenomena which is happening every day. There's nothing. It has to, like, be taken for granted, yeah. But if we have a news like Pope or is visiting India or US president is visiting India, now this kind of news has a lot of information in it. Why a president of US is visiting India? Okay, so could be multiple reasons. There are a lot of information which is there. So information processing is the change processing of information in any manner detectable by an observer. So I'm here. Okay, I take the pen here. Okay, I'm here. Within the field of cognitive psychology, information processing is an approach to the goal of understanding human thinking. Okay, in psychology, we are cognitive psychology. We are thinking how understand the human thinking. Everyone, like we are talking about everyone. We need to know uh, what you call how the human thinks, right? When we are sitting as a psychologist in front of someone, which are the patients, it's very important for us to understand how they're thinking, and what they are thinking is something different, but how they are thinking is also very important. It arose in the 1940s and 50s. The essence of approach is to see cognitions as a being essentially computational in nature, with mind being the software and the brain being the hardware. One of the primary areas of cognition study by researchers is memory. By the 1960s, research in memory had reached a high state of activity, and it was about this time that some formalized comprehensive theories of memories were being to be formulated. There are many hypotheses and suggestions as to how this integration occurs, and many new theories were built upon established beliefs in this area. Currently, there is a widespread consensus on several aspects of information processing. However, there are many dissensions in reference to specifics on how the brain actually codes or manipulates information as it is stored in memory. This section considers a few or more viable memory theories of that time. Okay, so we are going to uh, learn about some theories of information processing and how they are stored in the memory. Okay, so I don't know how much we will be able to cover today's time, and we see as we go further. So what are the objectives? Define information processing approach, discussing the various models of information processing, explain the levels of recall, and describe level of processing. So every process is important, how we input it, how we take it, how we store it, how we, before storing, we processes the information processing, the storing, and then the recalling. Okay. So as a psychologist, for the any patient, understand his all these steps is very you will able to cure the person very easily. Okay. So first theory which is coming to us is Waugh and Norman's model of primary and secondary memory. Okay. So the first modern behavioral model to travel down memory lane, and one whose concept of primary memory has served as a departure point for most modern theories, was developed by Waugh and Norman in 1965. The theory is dualistic. Primary memory, a short-term storage system, is conceptualized as being independent of secondary memory, SM, a longer-term storage system. Waugh and Norman borrowed freely from William James' dichotomy of primary and secondary memory and illustrated their theory by means of models shown in figure below, which encouraged the memory metaphor of boxes in the head that soon proliferated in the literature of cognitive psychology. Which figure? I think they are talking about this figure. So in this figure, there is a stimulus. Okay, there is a stimulus is there, and it which lead to something in the primary memory. I don't know what is this circle means. I think we will read about it. And if there's something which is of not interest to the user, probably it will go in forgotten. But if it is rehearsal, that it is happening again and again, it is goes into the secondary memory. Okay, let's see the explanation of this model. What Waugh and Norman, I'm in the second paragraph, okay. What Waugh and Norman did with James never attempted was to quantify properties of primary memory. This short-term storage system was taken to have very limited capacity, so that loss of information from it was postulated to occur not as a simple function of time, but once the storage capacity was exhausted by displacement of old items by new ones. Primary memory, I think PM stands for primary memory. I think PM stands for primary memory. Primary memory could be conceptualized as a storage compartment much like a vertical file, in which information is stored in a slot, or if all the slots are filled, displays an item occupying one of the slots. Or it's a file रखते हैं ना, I think that's what he's talking. You can accommodate certain amount of file only in there though. So Wong and Norman traced the fate of items in the primary memory by using list of 16 digits that were read to subjects at a rate of 1 digit per second or 4 digits per second. The purpose of presenting digit every second or quarter second was to determine whether forgetting was a function of decay or interference to primary memory. So how they test it, they give the number which is like a list of numbers, and they give it every second, and then the second one they give it every quarter second, right? 4 digits per second, which is a quarter second. And the so they kind of checking whether the how much capacity the primary memory have. Anyone wants to add anything so far? Please raise your hands, interrupt me. It's going to be group discussion. Again, I say I'm a student like you. So, if forgetting was a function of decay, then less recall could be expected with the slower rate. 1 digit per second. 1 digit per second is slower rate, and the less recall could be expected. If forgetting was a function of interference in primary memory, then no difference in record could be expected according to the presentation rate. The same amount of information is presented at both presentation rate, which by Waugh and Norman's logic allows the same time for decay to occur. It might be argued that even at 1 item per second, subject would allow extra experimental information to enter their primary memory. But later experimentation, in which presentation rate varied from 1 to 10 digits for a given period, yielded data consistent with the rate of forgetting expected from the original model. The rate of forgetting for the two presentation rates is similar. Interference seems to be greater factor than decay in forgetting in PM. So the rate of forgetting for the two presentation rate is similar. So they're saying that even if they are giving presentation at 1 second or a quarter second, the rate of forgetting is similar. Interference seems to be a greater factor than decay in forgetting in PM. I don't know what is the interference means here. Did anyone able to catch what is the interference? Or it is some kind of interruption in when they're giving the number, something like that. Vaughan and Norman's systems makes good sense. Primary memory holds verbal information and is available for verbatim recall. This is true in our ordinary conversation. We can recall that last part of the sentence we have just heard with complete accuracy, even if we were barely paying attention to what was said. Isn't it? It's true, right? If someone says one full sentence, we remember the last part of the sentence, or a word from the sentence which we are interested in. However, to recall the same information sometime later is impossible unless we rehearse it, which make it available through SM, the secondary memory. I think secondary memory refers to as a long-term memory. Any questions so far? Anything anyone wants to contribute? So here the VOG method, SM is called secondary memory, is more about the long-term memory. Yes, Sarita, you want to say something?
No.
No, okay, good. Now we go to next model, which is Atkinson and Schifrin's the stage model. Okay. Traditionally, the most widely used model of information processing is the stage theory model based on the work of Atkinson and Schifrin. The key elements of this model are that it views learning and memory as discontinuous and multi-stage. It is discontinuous and multi-stage. It is hypothesized that a new information is taken in, it is in some way manipulated before it is stored. The stage theory model, as shown in figure 1.4.2, recognizes three types of stage of memory: sensory memory, short-term or working memory, and the long-term memory. Okay, everyone can see it, eh? So here we have external stimulus. I can, yeah,
Yeah, it is external stimulus.
okay. Yes, external stimulus. Then we have, it is coming to sensory memory, and from sensory memory it is forgotten. So there will be initial processing here, and then processing goes to short-term memory. Uh, then I don't, it is some repetition is there, which is, I think they in which model we discussed just now, Bond, right? WOG and Norman's model. WOG and Norman's model, it is called rehearsal. They call it repetition here. Okay. So, and then short-term memory gives some response, and okay, so let's read that in. So it is a discontinuous. It is not a what you call just long term, short term, two stage kind of. It is saying the learning memory is discontinuous and multi stage. So let's see what it say in the Atkinson Schifrin model. Memory starts with a sensory input from the environment. This input is held for a very brief time, several seconds at most, in a sensory register associated with the sensory channels, vision, hearing, touch, and so forth. Uh, this occurs in as little as half second of visual stimuli and about 4 to 5 seconds for auditory stimuli. The transfer of new information quickly to the next stage of processing is of critical importance, and sensory memory acts as a portal for all information that is to become part of the memory. So he's saying that if it is an image, it is 4 to 5 second. No, sorry, for image it is half second visual, and for auditory it is 4 to 5 seconds. Okay. So after in a half second, it will take the sensory memory takes in. So there's a very I do, as I said, in NLP, I can give one reference to NLP. So in NLP, there are cases which are the hit and run cases solved uh, with use of subconscious. Like I'm assuming that the long term memory is a subconscious, right? So let's say there's a hit and run happen, like a car has hit someone and it's run away, right? And the driver or someone probably might have seen his number plate for a fraction of second. In a fraction of second, of course, you lost the memory, right? It's a temporary memory. But there are people who can go take you to the hypnotic state, and you can recall within that half second exposure you have, they can recall and can get that number plate from you in the hypnotic stage. So there are in police departments, they have solved problems using this technique. Now here in this model, they are saying no, it is sensory memory will come and it will forget. So there is this the subconscious mind concept is pretty little different than what we are talking about here. So but what is the point here is in half second of the visual stimuli and the 4 to 5 second of the auditory stimuli, it's something where we see that input the sensory registers register the information. Okay. 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 I think Sarita, you have to mute.
Sorry.
No problem. There are many ways to ensure transfer of many methods for facilitating the transfer. To this end, attention and automaticity are the two major influences on sensory memory, and much work has been done to understand the impact of each on information processing. Information that is attended to and recognized in the sensory registers may be passed on to second stage of information processing, that is short-term memory, STM, or working memory, where it is held for perhaps 20 to 30 seconds. This stage is often viewed as active or conscious memory because it is a part of memory that is being actively processed while new information is being taken in. So as you are learning today's, as you are hearing my uh, words, it is from your sensory, it is probably going to short-term memory. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to interrupt you and trying to give some examples on it so that the rehearsal happen, right? When I give examples, when the rehearsal happen, it goes into your long-term memory. Make sense? That's why examples and rehearsal is the important. Some of the information reaching short-term memory is processed by being rehearsed. That is, by having attention focused on it, perhaps being repeated over and over, maintenance rehearsal, or perhaps by being processed in some other way that will link it up with other information already stored in memory, elaborate rehearsal. Generally, 5 plus 2 number of units can be processed at any given in STM. Information that is rehearsed may then be passed along to long-term memory. Information not so processed is lost. When items of information are placed in long-term memory, they are organized into categories. So anything we thought about category expertise, right? Some people, like even if the heart surgeon has an expertise to operate a heart, so you can tell. Yes, Sarita.
Yeah, actually, I'm not getting it. The 5 plus 2 number of units.
Oh, okay. Good. 5 plus 2 number of unit is there in the chapter 1 actually. I now I forgot the researcher who did that. So what they did is they experimented with the humans. They give 7 tones,
Okay.
okay, to identify whether they are able to differentiate the tones. At what point they will able to differentiate whether tone is same or not. So they give some so just like a tones they gave.
Okay.
Okay. To identify till what point of tones they will able to identify whether this tone and what is the last first tone and the seventh tone are same. So it is observed that till seven they can recognize that, okay, this tone is different and this tone is different. After seven, they won't be able to differentiate whether the first tone and the eighth tone is was same or not. They were confused. Till seventh, they were able to.
Okay, this is the pattern.
Yes. So in fact, when someone gave you the number, right? For
Okay.
example, phone number. So 9888123101082. So if you see seven numbers, you will able to recognize. But for eight or nine number, probably you may have to repeat again.
Okay.
That is what it means, that generally 5 plus 2 number of unit can be processed at a given time in short-term memory.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so what I was talking about, I forgot what there's some example which I was giving. So long-term memory information not so processed is lost. When items of information are placed in long-term memory, they are organized into categories. So hi, I was talking about when the surgeon is doing some operation, right? So he's doing the operation so many times. He has done the operation so many times. that Where is in the heart he has to cut, where he has to do what stitches, how to, heart, what he has to do, what he has to look, what is bad, what is not bad. It is all things is there in his long-term memory, which he can recall anytime. So it become like once he do the operation two, three times, four times, five times, the like after that it becomes the seven onwards time. It probably become the general routine for him. Okay, so that is where we say that rehearsal is kind of makes your long-term memory more and more efficient. Okay. So when items of informations are placed in long-term memory, they are organized into categories where they may reside for days, months, years, or for a lifetime. When you remember something, a representation of the item is withdrawn or retrieved from long-term memory. So I don't know, as a psychologist, you will observe that the negative experiences are stored and much, and it get recalled lot much better time, like every time. But what the happy moments are usually, they are there in long term memory, but it's very difficult to take them recall. So probably at the recall we will see about them. Organization of long term memory. Each of the memory unit or structure represented in the mind is distinct and serve a different operational functions. However, it is evident that some type of very specialized categorization system exists within the human mind. We do categorize, right? When we store our files, I may store my songs in the songs, my videos in videos, pictures, or if I go to some trip, and I will make another trip category in my folder, and I'll store my pictures in that trip, like a Kerala trip. So I will name it as a Kerala trip and put my pictures there. So what it want to say here is the long-term memory is also categorized in such a way. There is a something called categorization. Okay, specialized categorization system. Very specialized categorized system exists within our mind. One of the first to make this idea explicit was Brunner. Based upon the idea of categorization, Brunner's theory states to perceive is to categorize, to conceptualize is to categorize, to learn is to form categories. It's a very important statement. And to make decisions is to categorize. So all these actions we are categorizing. To perceive, we categorize. To conceptualize, we categorize. To learn, we categorize. And to make decisions also, we categorize. So all these actions which we are doing, the information needs to be categorized. Toolwings in 1972 was the first to distinguish between Episodic and semantic memory. Episodic memories are those which give a subject the sense of remembering the actual situation or event. Yeah, something has happened, a birthday party, for example, is an event. So that is episodic memories. Episodic memory stored is centered on personal experience and specific events. It is entirely circumstantial and it is not generally used for the processing of new information except as a sort of backdrop. So another one is semantic memories. Okay. Semantic, we just talk of episodic memory and then we are talking of semantic memory. Semantic memory, in contrast, deals with general abstract information and can be recalled independently of how it was learned. So it is more about abstract information. I hope everybody is clear about abstract information. Abstract information in general, जैसे शादी में गए, ठीक है ना, तो व्हाट इज द एब्स्ट्रैक्ट इंफॉर्मेशन इन शादी? दूल्हा दुल्हन. Okay, it's a abstract information. Stage is there, that is very abstract information. So episodic is like when you, it's a very close relatives of yours, उसकी किसी की शादी हो रही है, आपके घर में किसी की शादी हो रही है, तो then you will be episodic because you will be working inside out looking for the caterers, this there's a lot of things you are doing. आप किसी की शादी में just as a guest जाते हो तो there is something you you just remember the abstract information. It is semantic memory that is the central focus of most current study because it houses the concept, strategies, and other structures that are typically used by encoding new information. Most researchers now combine these two in a broader category labeled declarative. So, they combine these two means episodic and semantic, they combine in one they call declarative memory. Okay, other researchers have identified additional organizational style, for example, about list declarative and procedural, while viewed citing the work in Pavio add imagery to this list. However, Paulician states that imagery is not a distinct organizational structure but follows the rules that apply to semantic and episodic memory. Abbott and Hewitt define declarative memory as that which can talk about or verbalize. Okay. It is then the sum of the stored information that can be readily retrieved and put into words in conscious thoughts and sharing. I'm here. As previously stated, declarative memory can be subdivided into both semantic and episodic memories. Procedural memory can be thought of as a how-to knowledge. Procedural memory can be, I'll just highlight this, procedural memory can be thought of how-to knowledge. Of course, like in the example I give the surgeon, it's more of procedural memory, like how to. It is a type of long-term memory sometimes associated with information that has reached a state of automaticity. Like surgeon is like it is very automatic for him, but it's not limited to this. This type of memory is defined in terms of learned skills and ability to recall instructions like memory. So same like you take example of surgeon or you take an example of cooking food. So you know कि पहले तेल डालना है, तड़का डालना है, राई जीरा मोरी डालना है, तड़का मारना है, वो करना है, no? And then उसके बाद हल्दी डालना है, मिर्ची डालना है, whatever the process is so automatic. So unless you try some recipe from the from the internet or YouTube and you try, so now there is no procedural into that. Pivio in 1971-1986 described imagery as a memory structure for collecting and storing information related to pictures. It captures information much like a photograph, and can be extremely useful for context and visual representation of information. Information processing in three-stage model. Atkinson and Shiffrin make an important distinction between the concepts of memory and memory stores. They use the term memory to refer to the data being retained. Memory to the data being retained, while store refers to the structural component that contains the information. And they're talking about कि अंदर ब्रेन में कुछ तो भी एक स्ट्रक्चरल कंपोनेंट जिसके अंदर वो इंफॉर्मेशन रखा है. दैट इज व्हाट दे आर सेइंग. व्हाट इट इज simply indicating how long an item has been retained doesn't necessarily reveal where it is located in the structure of memory. Okay, I think we will just complete this and we'll stop for today. Information processing from one store to another is largely controlled by the subject. Information briefly held in the sensory register is scanned by the subject and selected information is introduced into the STS. What is now STS? This suddenly to the surprise bring the short forms. Anyone can recollect what is STS? STS. Short-term storage, I think, yes. Okay. Short-term storage. Transfer of information from the short-term storage was regarded as capable of taking place so long as it was held there. Atkinson and Shiffrin postulate that information might enter the long-term store directly from the sensory register. What is they postulated that? Atkinson and Shiffrin postulated that information might enter the long-term store directly from sensory register. See this example which I'm talking about, right? Where the hit and run, you probably have exposure of just half second to the number plate of the car which has hit the other car, and the psychologist using hypnotism were able to recall in the person's memory that stage of half second and ask them to read that number plate. Okay, so this is that typically is the case of your information from sensory registers going directly into long-term memory. Now, I do a lot of work in subconscious mind. So in subconscious mind, it is being said that whatever you do, even for a fraction of second, it goes into subconscious. It's there in subconscious. It just we we don't know the technique of how to recall it. Okay, we stop it here. Uh, right? We I think we read for 35 minutes or so today. I first stopped the recording.